What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I'm bringing you guys a somewhat ballyhooed and excited theater release from 2021, and that is Escape Room 2: Tournament of Champions. Now, the first Escape Room was heavily watched. It was one of those things that horror fans were excited to see what they were going to do with it, and it came out to be a little predictable in some ways, and it's kind of considered middle of the road or slightly below average to most people, but there is just a devout audience for this style of film, and I will get into it in all the particulars, but this is the sequel to Escape Room, which came out, I believe, in 2019, so 2 years later now we've got Escape Room 2: Tournament of Champions, and it is written by Will Honley, Maria Melnick, and Daniel Tuch, and directed by Adam Robitel. I think it's Robitel. It's spelled Robitel, but it could be pronounced Robitai. Adam Robitel directed the first Escape Room, as well as Insidious: The Last Key, which I wasn't a big fan of, but also The Taking of Deborah Logan, which I was a big fan of. So Adam Robitel's got his hands in a lot of genre staples lately, so it's good to see him penning, or at least directing, the sequel here. Starring Taylor Russell and Logan Miller from the first film. And basically, I will do this spoiler free. Of course, this film just came out as I'm recording this. Came out yesterday, so I will not be giving spoilers until the end of the video. But for spoiler free purposes, I might be spoiling the first film. So if you haven't seen the first Escape Room, pause this video, go watch that, come back. First film will be spoiled. Basically, in the first Escape Room, 6 strangers kind of come together in a what they think is going to be a game. They wind up getting stuck in this escape room. They wind up kind of dying off one by one in a very familiar kind of subgenre, this torturous kind of subgenre that Saw kind of started, where strangers wake up together in a room or find themselves together in some adventurous scenario. And they wind up dying off one by one as they advance to the final set of rooms, where there is potentially one survivor. In this film, of course, there are 2, because we saw at the end of the first movie 2 people survive. That is Taylor Russell and Logan Miller surviving the first film. So they come in, and as we left them at the end of the first film, they found the logo on the card or something like that. They're going after the government people that are behind this escape room murder situation. So that they realize this company is using escape rooms to do real torture and hurt people, and they're trying to find out exactly who's behind it and stop it from happening again. So we open this film with Taylor and Logan, their characters' counterparts, going and chasing after these people. They go to, I think it's in New York City, I believe. So they find themselves running around trying to find kind of who's behind this evil empire. That is basically the plot of the film. They find themselves essentially on a metro, on like a T in New York, and they find themselves with several other people on the train, and that the game has started again. Now, you find this out in the first 15 minutes of the film, so there's no big, the trailer gives that away, so there's no big spoiler there. But Taylor and Logan find themselves on a train with several other players from previous escape rooms, different universes, different cities that the same escape room has produced. So now you've got this tournament of champions, so to speak, where 6 of the survivors of the first game now have to play the second game and try to survive again. Again, this is a formulaic film. If you guys have seen Escape Room or any of the Escape Room films, there's a couple on Tubi. There's one new one on Netflix. We have the Cube series in the early 90s. We got the Saw series. It is kind of similar, where you just are stuck in a series of rooms where there are different traps and cool things that are trying to kill you, and you're trying to survive. And generally, somebody kind of dies or gets close to dying in each room, and you come down to your survivors and see what can come out of it. So it is a very formulaic film, but like I said to open this video, it has a very devout audience. These films, yes, there are leaps in logic in all these films, including this one. Yes, there are some characters that annoy you, including in this one. There are situations where the character kind of goes rogue and doesn't consult the group, or they all split up too soon. There are going to be these dumb character choices that make you go, oh, why am I watching this? But regardless of that, it's just fun, intense, and fast-paced and interesting to see how these characters bond, who stands out in these characters, how they get through these traps, and how much time they have as the traps are constructed around them. I enjoy that formula, and many others do too. Saw the first one in theaters, saw this one in theaters, and it's just, in general, a good time. One of the biggest positives for me in this film, once again, is the rooms. They do a nice job of creating very unique, different rooms that have their own challenges that are timed, and you have to work together, find all the holes, and survive before the thing collapses. And with all sequels, like this one, you're trying to build on the universe you already have. You're trying to up the ante. You're trying to make it more dangerous, more deadly, bigger, wider, scarier, bigger budget. And you could feel the bigger budget in this film. While it's still paint by numbers room to room, the rooms feel more colorful. They feel bigger. They feel more deadly. And that's one of the biggest things. They took the rooms from the first one and they made the similar feel in this. They built an actual universe that's kind of photographic, kind of CGI style. To its detriment also. It's a positive and a negative here. But I will say, not only the rooms in this, but the ratcheting up of where it was in the first one to where the rooms are now, it feels like they've taken the concept, they've created some original stuff, and they've grown on their original concept. That's what you want for a sequel. That is a big success in this film. Tension is the single biggest thing that I enjoyed about this film. It happens in the first one, it happens more in this one, where the entire time all the rooms are timed and they all have a certain amount of minutes or seconds to solve the puzzle and get out of these rooms, and you feel the tension the entire time. That is one of the biggest draws to seeing these things in theaters, is sitting in your seat, holding onto your chair, going, I hope they get out of here. And the two main characters, and even a couple of the other ones, are very likable, so you want to see them survive, and they have some ties to each other, so you're holding your chair, you're hoping they get out just in a nick of time, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So the tension in this, which is one of the biggest themes of these movies, does strike a nerve in this. You do feel good tension the entire time. It's almost like you're breathing out at the end of each room, and then as soon as they get into the next room, the next piece of tension starts. They don't give you a whole lot of time, which does take away from the character building in one negative aspect. You don't get very thick, very layered characters in this, besides the ones we already know, but we do get the tension. So you're sacrificing some downtime and some character building for some tension, and I'm okay with that in this case because that's what this movie really is. Next big thing, like I said before, just a fun movie. This film runs an hour and 28 minutes, so you probably get about an hour and 24 plus credits. Pretty fast watch, pretty easy. I sat with two friends watching this. We had a good time. We laughed. We held our chairs. We enjoyed this movie for what it was. And to their credit, they came in watching this without having seen the first one. I drugged them along to this, and they understood the film pretty quickly, and they latched onto the characters pretty quickly without knowing the first film. So that is a credit to this film. There also is a twist. I will explain at the end of the video. It's a spoiler. So there's a twist in this film that kind of gives you more of a reason for why it's happening than we got in the first film. So it wasn't just paint by numbers, oh, the government's evil, the government's doing all these killings. There was a situation or a something or a somebody that is behind this one that kind of ties things together and makes the themes in the rooms make more sense. So there's more logic, there's more explanation, and there's more of a figurehead behind this one than we get in the first film, which makes this overall to me a better film because the story has more tie-in room to room and more tie-in overall, which we get a nice little twist, and I'll explain that in the spoilers. Big positive there. Negatives, CGI. Just like in the first one, sometimes the CGI is way too much. These rooms are made for practicality. You want to see gore. You want to see rooms built with in practical effects. The coloring was so nice, and the rooms were so big, and the world they built was so big in this that you wanted to see more practicality. And I understand you can't always just destroy rooms and destroy cities by blowing everything up. You've got to have some CGI, I guess. But in this case, some of the CGI took me out of it because sometimes the world was crashing, and I was like, oh, that's obviously just very fake. And so while you know it's going to be CGI, you got to be able to blend it enough that it doesn't take you out of the moment. And while it didn't for the most part, sometimes it did. So I'm giving that a big negative spot. Character decisions, obviously, like I said earlier, some of the characters go rogue when they shouldn't. Some of the characters get too frustrated and act out of anger, which I guess makes sense in the story, but every time it happens, there's always a hothead. There's always a timid one who gets killed because they stay behind for too long. There's always one that kind of makes a decision on their own and he almost gets the entire group killed. And this happens here too. I wish they would get rid of those tropes. if we're going to have these trope-style movies, we can at least make the characters a little more thickly veiled and not be as trope-heavy and trope-obvious. There's still some of these old tired tropes in that, so it's a little bit kind of paint by numbers. Oh, okay, this guy's going to go run off here. This girl's going to cry and get killed. This guy's going to go do something stupid by himself, and he's going to get the other person killed. We get a couple of those in this film, and I wish we would get rid of those. Predictability. Even though we get a nice twist at the end, and this thing is a little more tied up than the first one was, it's still predictable. You still kind of, once we get the twist, you kind of know where it's going to go. You kind of can call the end. I kind of called it. There were certain lines that gave certain things away. They tried some nice callbacks that were a little obvious. So I kind of knew where it was going for the most part, in spite of the one cool twist. So while it was a little more varied than the first one, it was still too predictable in my opinion. So that is the end of the spoiler-free portion. I'm going to give this film, I'm going to recommend it and say 6.5 out of 10. If you go back and watch my old review for 2019 on the first film, I believe that I gave that film a 6 out of 10. 5.5 to a 6, I believe. This one is slightly better. It's 6.5 out of 10. It's not a home run. It's not like an amazing movie. It's not super original. It's not going to change the world. There's still some cheesiness in the graphics. There's still some cheesiness in the acting. But overall, it does a better job telling the story. It's a bigger world. It's colored well. It's a fast-paced movie. It's fun to watch, and it's better than the first one. It built on the original, made it slightly better. While it's not going to be your number one movie of the year by any means for you horror fans, it is going to be maybe somewhere on the low end of your list. I would have this maybe at the 8th or 9th best horror movie of 2021 so far. So while it's not amazing, it's very solid, and I recommend it, especially if you enjoyed things about the first and you want to see a slightly better version of the first. 6.5 out of 10. That's the end of the non-spoiler portion. For those of you guys that have seen the movie and you want spoilers, here they go. Okay, so spoilers. Basically, we get down to Taylor and Logan, the two main characters from the beginning. Logan dies 2/3 of the way through the movie, and you're really sad. Taylor's sad because she caused Logan to die, so we've lost one of our main survivors from the first movie. Then we come into the final room, and all of a sudden, Deborah Ann Woll, the redheaded mom from the first movie, pops out of nowhere. And you go, oh my God, she's alive. They flash back and show that when she fell down the pit in the first movie, she fell onto a bed. And she says, if you don't see it, it didn't happen. They established that new rule in this world. If you don't see it happen, it didn't happen. So when she fell, we didn't see where she landed. She fell onto a bed, and the government, this company, Minos, that's behind it, told her that they would keep her alive and give her back her daughter if she would plan the next escape room for everyone. So they put her behind the escape room. She was the new bad guy. She built the room for them so they would keep her alive and keep her daughter alive. So she's still a good person being tortured by them, but being forced to build the room for the remaining characters. And so also, since we don't see Logan Miller's character die, he actually is still alive. He is put back into a water-filled room where they say that if Taylor Russell decides to do the same thing Deborah Ann Woll did, if she builds the escape room for the next movie, basically, then her friend will stay alive, and they'll keep her alive. But if she doesn't build the room, then she dies and Logan Miller dies. She decides against it. She gets Logan Miller out of the trap. The three of them run away and escape. They go back to the police headquarters with the evidence they got, with tape recorders and stuff, and Deborah Ann Woll returning. They tell the cops what's happening. They're supposedly busted. They get back on a plane to go home, and we see flashbacks from Taylor Russell from the beginning with a therapist who says everything's a clue, and of course they still wind up being in the next escape room. They're on a plane, and they're still part of the game. The police station was too easy, so it was all part of the setup. So we're possibly getting another movie. As long as this one makes money, we're going to see more of these, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, if they want to keep building on the story, as long as they can break out a little bit, make it bigger each time, make the traps really cool each time, give us a couple extra characters each time that we actually care about, and build on the lore and give us some answers as to why this is happening, I'm okay with it. As long as it doesn't fall down the rabbit hole of paint by numbers, I'm cool with it. So 6.5 out of 10. If you saw it, tell me in the comments below what you thought. If you didn't see it, go check it out. I recommend it. And please like, share, and subscribe to this video so I can keep reviewing more 2021 and other films on this channel. Stay scared, my friends, and I'll see you guys in the next escape room.